B'ezrat Hashem, we're on Ema Banim Simchat, Rav Techtel's book, chapter 3, subchapter 55, within chapter 3. Amar HaMechaber, Achar Ha'erichi בדברים, בדרך כלל הוכיח מחז"ל. Whoa, wait a second. Okay, so he starts off the chapter that says, I don't know, he's saying Amar HaMechaber, but I'm not quite sure which Mechaber he's referring to now. I almost wish I had the English. How does the English, what's the English? Oh. Salvation depends solely on us. Okay, so the salvation depends solely on us. Amar HaMechaber. Okay, but he's saying Amar, he's quoting somebody who's quoting Chazal. Okay. We're the only ones who can raise us up from Galus and to restore our own glory and kavod and self-respect and honor. And it only depends on us, on how much of an awakening of soul we have for this, to put to rest, to leave the lands of Galus and to move to Eretz Yisrael, the land of our beloved land. And depending on our awakening and how much attention we put to this, simat lev, how much of our heart we put into wanting to come back to Eretz Yisrael, this will perfect and complete our aliyah. And as he brought in, so chapter 3, subsection 35, in the name of Rabbi of Liska, who was a tremendous Kabbalistic commentator. I remember teaching Kohelet and Shir Shirim with the help of Rav Liska. In any case, so what Rav of Liska said in his book, B'Shem, in the name of the Chida, that Eretz Yisrael is gematria of two words, tet lev, put heart. So to acquire Eretz Yisrael, you have to go full heart with it, on it. That if everybody in Israel, all Jews, would just give their heart to making Aliyah, to Eretz Yisrael, Mashiach would come. And that's what Rav Liska is quoting from the Chida. Now Rav Techtel is back. He's saying, Esad dibrati el hagalut galus yud. He wants to speak now about the exiled Jew, this thing called the exiled Jew, the Jew with the mentality of exile, living in exile. Now he's like addressing him directly, and you, now specifically you Galus Yid, you are so connected to the land of your Galus, what you're living on, to the actual earth and land that you live on, that you sit there, and we were thrown into exile, and you refuse to leave. Like you've decided that this is your place. Even to the point that even if they will beat you, now this is very hurtful, because we see that we're living this time. We're mamash living what he's talking about here. To the point that even if they will beat you with a lot of beatings, horrible beatings, v'makah yarpei yado, v'hamakeh yarpei yado mimcha rak al shakla, and the whipper, the one who's hitting you, will just stop whipping you for just a short hour. Already, you're back to appeasing him and making peace with him. And you don't stop to think that what's going to be tomorrow, that tomorrow the whippings and beatings are going to come back. All this anti-Semitic treatment, harsh anti-Semitic treatment will come back. You don't stop to think about it. Whether it's an immediate tomorrow that it's going to happen, or whether it's in some further time down the line, but it's going to happen back. Anti-Semitism always comes back. And this is how you've accepted to live your days and your years b'makot, with beatings that keep returning themselves. 2,000 years of this repetitive going back and living this scenario. And still you have not learned from the past to contemplate about the future. I don't think I need to explain what he just said, right? We're living it. And I think that this is what Chazal meant in the Midrash on the Pasuk from Yeshayahu, Yisrael lo yada, ami lo yitbonan. Israel does not know, my nation does not stop to think, does not contemplate. Yisrael lo yada, Israel doesn't know, Israel as in Jews. This concerns the past. They don't learn their history. Ami lo yitbonan, my nation does not mitbonen, does not contemplate concerning the future. In other words, the Navi Shayahu, he's lamenting about the shortness of understanding, the lack of understanding of exiled Jews that do not want to, she'inam rutzim, that do not want to learn from the past, and they put themselves to the future in the hopes that the future will be good. But there's absolutely nothing in logic that leads us to believe that that's going to be the case. It's happened so many times in history. And therefore they don't give their heart to return to the inheritance of their fathers. In other words, the land of Israel. And because they don't put their heart into it, they don't put their attention, they don't make their heart awake with this understanding, so too mina shamayim, they don't return them to Eretz Yisrael. Now he's saying something very key here, because what we hear from our brothers and sisters is, when it'll come time, when Mashiach comes, when God will call me upon me, then I'll come. Meanwhile, I'll be here. And he's saying that's not how it works. By you not putting your heart and attention and desire to move to Eretz Yisrael, you're inviting more galus upon yourself. You're not inviting Hashem in a way that the path that a man walks. This is how he's led. As Rav Teichel brought in previous times from Yaakov Avinu, Ilu lo yahav de'atya lemehedar gam min hashamayim lo ikvu. I think this is referring to he was going to Haran, vayetz Yaakov Beersheva ve'elech Harana, and then all of a sudden we hear that he's in Beit El. It seems like there was like a stepping back. He was going forward and then coming back, and then that's where he had the dream. Why did he go and come back? Because he remembered, I passed the place where my father and my grandfather prayed, and I didn't stop to pray there. So he went back and prayed, and it had to come from himself, this awareness. And he says here that Mina Shemaim, if he would have passed that place and missed the opportunity and not called upon the Siyata Dishmaya to be with him, going down to exile, to Chutz La'aretz, to Haran, to this place of anger, to where Lavan is living, if he wouldn't have stopped and to contemplate and go back on his own, in Shemaim, they wouldn't have caused him to go back. Lo yakvu. He would have just missed it. He would have just gone straight to Haran. And this is a hint to us in Galus, Rav Teichel says. As it's, and now he's quoting from the Mabit. V'gam divrei Rabbeinu Chida, and also what the Chida says above, teach us שובתנו לארץ, that our coming back to Eretz Yisrael, תלוי רק בשימת ליבנו זה, is dependent upon how much attention of our heart we put to this, how much care, how much we want to actually have that happen, to come back to Eretz Yisrael. So people pay lip service all the time to Israel, Israel, Israel. And Israel is mentioned in the Tefillah and the Siddur so many times. And religious Jews who are Chutz La'aretz, also they say the same words. But how much attention of the heart they say, if it will, I have an opportunity now, would I just get up and leave? And it seems like their heart's not there. Their lips are there. They're moving. They're saying the words of Chazal, but their heart's not there. And from this, we learn a lot about where their heart is. Oh, now he's going into Yiddish, but I'm going to skip the Yiddish. And I'll read you the translation in Hebrew. Hatragedia hagdola. Oh, that's nice Hebrew. The big tragedy. How do you say tragedia in Yiddish now? The größere Tragedia. Okay, I could have managed that.
And it's most languages is tragedia.
Whoever translates says it translates the great tragedy of the Jewish people is this. שגם אף אחרי כל אותם המאורעות האיומים והטרגדיים הטרגיים שעברו עליו, that after all of the horrible and tragic events that befell upon us, טרם למד שום לקח, we have not learned our lesson. In other words, the tragedy is not the tragedy. It's that we forget, we don't learn the lessons from the tragedies we go through. That's the tragedy. כאן תמונה הטרגדיה היהודית. Herein lies the Jewish tragedy. And about this, the Navi laments, Yisrael lo yada, Israel does not know, the Jews do not know about the past. V'ami lo yitbonem, the nation does not contemplate, read the past, for the future. Stiff-necked. Stiff-necked people on the positive side, because Moshe Rabbeinu said it, and he loved Am Yisrael, and he said it when Hashem was angry with the Jewish people, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, forgive them because they're stiff-necked people. But why should he forgive them if they're stiff-necked? They're hopeless. It sounds like, right? Why forgive them because they're stiff-necked? Because when it comes down to it, they will put down their lives and Mesiras Nefesh for what is true. And that's what makes it stiff-necked. Okay. But it works both ways. Once you're stiff-necked, you're stiff-necked. And if you're not stiff on the right point, then chas v'chalila, okay. Anyway, going back to the book. Shenit. Secondly, et paleh alai. He's now continuing to speak. This whole chapter is about the Galus Yid, the Jew in exile, the exiled Jew. So he wants to make now one other point. What was the first point he made? That we don't learn from past. And we think somehow miraculously it's gonna the history is not going to repeat itself. So here he's saying a different point. שכל כך עיניך קשורים ואין אתה רואה מה שנעשה סביבותיך. That you're so short-sighted that you don't see what's happening around you. You see how they beat shemakim animet. You see how they beat and torture your brothers with beatings and with all kinds of tortures, horrible tortures. ולבך לא מתרגש מזה כלל, and your heart is not stirred by this at all. התורד דמי אחיך נגרים עלי ארץ כמים. You see the blood of your brother is being spilt like water on the earth. הנשפכים ולבך לא מתפחד. Just flowing, blood flowing, Jewish blood flowing, and your heart is not afraid. Your heart is not stirred. כי תאמין על שעה אשר עודנה משחק לך, because you still believe in the hour that's still playing for you, that you're in a safe place, and if it's happening to other Jews somewhere else, it's not really affecting you. I hope there's less and less Jews of this type now. But I was at a bar mitzvah yesterday. Baruch Mordechai, my grandson, my first bar mitzvah and the grandchildren. Baruch Hashem. So someone was there from Chutz La'aretz. Families come for Chutz La'aretz for Simchas. And hi, how you doing? How you doing? And then this is what she decided to share with me. God bless her. I don't want to say.
No.
I don't want to say. No, it doesn't matter. She came for the bar mitzvah, and she's saying, I see we really have to play for the chatufim, because I see them all over the place. Now that I'm in Israel, I see it's all about the chatufim all over the place, wherever she goes. It's hard to miss. We live here, so maybe we don't notice their faces all over the buses and train. Yes, we do. And I said, yeah, oh. And I said, what do you mean? It's not on your mind over there? Like, what do you mean you came to Israel and like now it's pressing? It's not pressing when you're there? And then she realized she was caught, and she says, no, there's always there's Tehillim groups and we get together and we do it. I'm sure it's true, but it's not as pressing. It's still something that you do and you move on with your life. It does, you're not involved in it.
And it's fun. They're farther away from, the families who are affected.
Okay. So maybe I'm a weirdo. It's possible that I'm a weirdo. I accept that I'm a weirdo. But no, I want to tell you what my experience, okay? That in Truck Lake. So I used to go to Truck Lake every summer. It would take it's like whatever, the country of Montreal, we go swimming. It's the up north, okay? The mountains. And so it's a bungalow colony kind of thing. And we had a shared laundry room type of thing. I didn't have to give you all that information, but I'm just placing myself in the situation where I was. I'm in the laundry room under one of the buildings, okay? And this is the time when, I don't know if it was the Intifada, but there was a lot of bombings going on in Israel. It must have been the Intifada. Must have been the late 80s or something. And there was a lot of suicide bombs and buses, and I'm very plugged into what's going on in Israel. And I guess that morning, there was another bombing or something like that, and more people died. And I'm coming down to the lunchroom, and I see these other women there, and they're chatting, and they see my face. This is like, what's wrong? I said, no, there was another pigua, there was another bombing or another suicide. I forget what the situation was. And it says, and they look at me, they weren't affected by it, like they had to kind of put on some sort of frown on their face, but they didn't really get it. They didn't get it. They weren't affected by it. And I looked at them. I was saying, a bunch of Jews just got blown up for being Jews in Israel. I didn't say it like that, but in my head, I just noticed. I just took note how I was affected and broken by it, and other people not necessarily.
Because their attitude was it's happening to them.
Because it's happening to, and that's what he's saying here. That people, that the exiled Jew, this is part of his problem. So I was in exile. I was a Jew in exile then, but I don't think I fit the category of an exiled Jew as he's explaining here, because here an exiled Jew is someone that feels it's happening to them. It doesn't affect me. I can just go on with my life. I'll give some tzedakah. Somebody asked me, if they ask me to say Tehillim, I'll say Tehillim. But really not affected. Because you still believe in the hour that's playing for you. And you say to your heart, these things will not happen to me. And these things will not happen to you because you're sitting in a safe and secure place. And you find blessing in your heart saying, peace unto me. But not like this will happen to you, so says Hashem. It's not the attitude we're supposed to have when we hear horrible situations happening. We're supposed to have an awakening of a heart about this. We're supposed to ask, if I heard about it, it's about me also. אבל אתה גלות יוד, but you galus yid, okay? הסכת ושמע, הסכת ושמע לדבריי. Be silent and listen to my words. פקח עיניך, open up your eyes and see, because כי גם אחיך שבא אליהם הצרה הזאת של מכת חרב ואובדן ושללם לבוז, היו יושבים במקום בטוח בשכונות מבוטחים כמו אתה. The people, the Jews that you're hearing about, that this is happening to, were also sitting in a very comfortable and secure place before this happened to them, just like you're sitting in a comfortable, secure place now. And in the end, everything got turned up about them. The whole wheel got overturned, God forbid. And came to them what came to them. Where do you get this confidence, this brazen confidence that you think you're above all of this?
It's even misplaced confidence.
It's misplaced. That's what he's saying. Like you're going to be like spared from this, that this is like from chemla, that you're spared. To the point that you're not afraid and your heart is not weak or troubled from the tzara, from the sorrows that you hear your brothers are going through. There's an indifference that comes to the heart. And if it's possible to say, it's not like you're not mishtat, it's not like you're not participating, doing your part for the tzuras that are happening. Because if somebody will come to you and say, give some tzedakah, you'll reach into the pocket and give tzedakah from all of the sorrow, from all the nifgaim, all the wounded and hurt. You give as much as you can. But then he says like this, but now stop to consider, how much did you actually give? In other words, people lost everything.
Not much they don't give.
Does it come any close to the trouble that the people who lost everything, what you're giving, does it come close to making up for all of that they lost? Or if it's only or if it's only according to the bracha that God gave you, blessed you with to give. If so, you did not fulfill your obligation with what you gave. And all of this happened because you're missing the midah, the trait of brotherhood, ve'ahavat Yisrael, and love for all Jews. You're missing. In other words, what's a person who doesn't have, what's he meant to do? Like, if I gave what I can give, and now like, so you go on these campaigns and you raise up your, you're like, you could be matrim other people. You call you bring the awareness of what's going on, and you try to raise money other ways. If you yourself don't have, what do you bring?
I'm just looking at this. It's from Nakama Nagborne.
Yeah.
That really the problem is between Esav
Esav and Yaakov.
and Yaakov.
Wow.
And until this was the
Cool. She wrote this book? She put it together?
She wrote a book. This was just the
so cool. I want to write a book.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
before.
Bless me, I should one day write a book.
Yes, I've been telling you. That's not a kiddush.
No, but that's fantastic. I want to see that. Okay, now we're going back. So what's missing is Avat Yisrael, basic Avat Yisrael, like basic. Like if you only give a pruta, ask a rabbi. I mean, like it's complicated because we're not supposed to make ourselves poor, but some people do. Some people don't. Like they'll give up. Some people do. They'll suck and mortgage their house to be able to save There are beautiful people like that. Ask your rabbi what's right for you, okay? Because you want to do everything. But ask a rabbi. ואהבת ישראל, באמת לראות בהנפגע, to be able to see the person who's hurt, who's נפגע, who's wounded, and is in a troublesome situation, את אחיך במלוא מובן המילה, to see them as your brother in the fullest sense of the meaning of the word. He is mamash, your flesh and blood. It's a fellow Jew. As Moshe Rabbeinu, here it is, the parsha, as we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu in Shmot. I love that this is happening right in Parsha Shmos, because he hasn't mentioned Parsha Shmos in a very long time. And here we got to the parsha, and here we are. What do we learn from Moshe Rabbeinu? Vayar ish mitzri makei shivri me'achav. He sees an Egyptian man beating a Jewish, a Hebrew from his brother. It's a very meduyak lashon. The words are very specific in how the Torah tells the story. Moshe Rabbeinu, who's prince of Egypt, sees an Egyptian, an employee of his stepfather, Paro. Mind-boggling to think of it like that, right? Beating a slave, and he's from the aristocrat, he's a prince, beating a slave, and he sees, he's my brother. The slave is my brother. V'hach me'echav, and he beat from his of his brother. The word me'echav from his brother seems to be superfluous, Rav Techel says. Legamre, it seems to be superfluous here. And more so that we see. So why is the Torah telling us that it's superfluous? And also it says, and he went out to see his brothers. In other words, the Torah is emphasizing the alignment of Moshe Rabbeinu's heart with the downtrodden, with his brothers that are being whipped. Who more than Moshe Rabbeinu, who grew up in the palace of the king, can say, I have nothing to do with them? They probably brought it upon themselves and all kinds of things like that. But his heart was different, and he went to his brothers. Rak dehora lanu hakatuv dechol kach ka'av leMoshe. All of this mentioning from his brothers to his brothers is to teach us the great pain that Moshe Rabbeinu felt when the Egyptian whipped the Hebrew. As if he was one of his brothers. As if the person that was being whipped was like mamash, a flesh and blood brother of his. That's how he saw them. And that's why he placed himself in a place of danger. Imagine interfering with the king's orders, and you're interfering with public policy set out by the king, Paro, and you're bringing something else into it. It's, as we saw, that it became very dangerous for him. He had to flee Mitzrayim, even though he was the prince.
But mainly because of his fellow Jew.
Yeah, that's so sad, right? And that's why he placed himself in the place of danger. Lehatzil ashuk miyad oshko. Placed himself in a place of danger to save an oppressed from his oppressor, because he had a lot of pain from this, that he was beating his brother. And and so much so that he had so much a desire to save his brother, he didn't stop to think, is it appropriate of me to do this? Is it good for me? Am I doing something that's good for me? Am I not compromising myself in this situation? And he ignored that, all those calculations, put himself into the danger to save him, not without stopping to consider the consequences of what that's going to look like for him. This is the midah of a Jew when it comes to saving fellow Jews. That The Torah is teaching us that's the ideal. And it's not an ideal that we can't reach. They're teaching us this is what you're supposed to do. And so too, this is exactly what should have been in our times, Rav Tachtel, in 1940s, 44. Bismanenu, be'elu shenifletu mkomam, from those people. Listen, he's saying something very, very hurtful for me to have read it this morning. This is the attitude that we should have had for those refugees that came from the Medina, the state of hell, in other words, Eastern Europe, Poland, that those of them that managed to flee into Hungary at that time, or other places that were in a position to receive them, to help them, to save their souls, and to give them homes, because they left with nothing from wherever they had to escape from. And about those, and now they're escaping to land and thinking, well, there's Jews. Jews are hungry. They're still okay there. We'll go. We'll open up our hands. They'll for sure receive us. They'll for sure receive us, and with an open heart, and they'll participate somehow. But what they were met with was korua, was what's it called? Apathy, was like indifference, and maybe even of a little bit of a fe. Malicious. And I remember learning this history that the refugees from the Holocaust that ended up in Israel, the Israeli tzabars, were very ashamed from them. They wanted nothing to do with them. It's like, this happened to you, this would never happen to us. Why didn't you fight for yourself? Why didn't you defend yourself? And there's a certain like shame, and again, it's like a disconnect from the heart of, you're my brother, this happened to you, horrible, let me help you. Let me help with your rehabilitation. It's upon us to do everything to rehabilitate you, but they weren't received that way. Aside from maybe a few that gave over their nefesh to this, to help the refugees. But really, the ones, the gdolim, the heads of the communities, the gdolim, those who were rich and in a position of power, and those who are on high windows, that's what he says in Hebrew, they're sitting up there in the high windows, nisharu kar, they remained cold against them. As if those situations did not affect them at all, as if it had nothing to do with them. To the point of having a lot of disdain, and maybe even animosity towards them. To those Jews that just fled a horrible situation. And more so, it's puzzling to him. He doesn't get it because it affected all of European Jews. Even in Hungary at that time, the Nazis didn't come, but movement was still limited, restricted. And we know the story of Chana Senesh, and there was all kinds of discriminations that made their way to Hungary even before this. Because we know שנעשה ישראל ממש מהפקר בנפשו ובמונו, to the point that every Jew became hefker. His soul and his possessions became hefker. Any non-Jew can come and at will take it. והיה צריך להיות שיתר, okay, I don't know my glasses here, and sometimes I see, sometimes I don't. שיתר ליבם ממקומם. This should have stirred their hearts from their places. But what do we see? To our great sorrow, that the spirit and the feelings of those rich gvirim, the rich people, are sitting in their serene palaces, and they don't move from their places not even an iota, and they do not participate in the tsar of the fellow Jews as it should be. And if they already do a little bit something from the goodness, from the goodness of like, because they're stirred to do something good, they do this from a self-serving place because lo naim, somebody's coming to collect. I'm not going to give. How can I not give? They do it with a heaviness and with a kor ruach, with a cold spirit, like not into it. Their heart's not there, but lacking warmth. It seems like a great burden. What? Another one came, and another refugee wants my help. But oh wow, I just gave. Here's another refugee that came and wants my help. When is this ever going to end? And they're saying it from a self-protected place, disconnected place. And he says, I already fulfilled my obligation one time. And the like, as we hear from the leaders of our community, they're sitting in positions of power. How are we doing for time? Okay, 10 minutes. Not so did Chazal tell us about Moshe Rabbeinu. And this is what it says in Shmot Rabbah about Moshe Rabbeinu. Shtei yitziot yatsa oto tzadik. Two outings. This tzaddik, Moshe Rabbeinu, went out 2 times. And both times were mentioned in the Torah. One after the other. The first outing that he went out to kill the Egyptian that whipped the Jew. And the second day, right after that, we see just raising their hand, that the 2 Jews were fighting, and one was raised his hand to beat the other Jew, and Moshe Rabbeinu interferes and saying, Rasha, lama takere echa. You evil person, why are you going to beat your own brother? You don't have enough mitzvim that's doing this to you. So history, mamash, repeats itself over and it's on Uperesh, and then he's going to quote the Maharal about this midrash. Shezeh harbota hishmiyani haTorah. That this doubles, like these scenarios that the Torah is telling us. That after what happened the first day, he should have been afraid to go out and interfere again a second time. He should have realized the danger he's putting himself in. People are seeing him behave like this. It's going to get back to Paro. Clearly, he's putting himself in danger to the authorities.
He had to get rid of the body of the Egyptian.
Yeah, right. So that's what I say. But that didn't stop him. The next day he went out again. And all of this didn't bring Moshe Rabbeinu to be afraid to do what's tzadek, what's right and just, to stand up for justice. And this is a lesson that every Jewish leader has to get, because Moshe is teaching us Jewish leadership here. Not to think about themselves at all, not to think about saving themselves, but to save Latzil Ashuk. But rather, we have to, if there's oppressors, we have to save the oppressed from the oppressors. And I'm sorry, I apologize for what just came into my head that I'm going to share with you. This world is calling the Palestinians the oppressed, and we're the oppressors. And their heart is moved to help the oppressed. But that's so fuch. Saying, what do you mean? I do care about justice. You see, I'm forever crying about the genocide that's happening in Gaza. And Jews are speaking like this also.
So that's what's so timely today, that they are siding with the Paro. The Jews are siding. They
with the Paro.
Side with the Paro and
right.
snitch on fellow Jews.
Yeah. Not normal.
Right now.
Not normal.
It's out of.
So okay. But the Jewish leader has to say, okay, fellow Jews here are being oppressed. Do something about it. But due to our many sins, we don't see the leadership behaving like this. Only coldness, excessive coldness we see. concerning the saving of the refugees. Rucham kal, their spirit is very cold. V'diburam kal, and their speech is very cold, and all their actions are cold. Ve'af mashe asu hayarak mipanim, and also whatever they do manage to do is only like superficial, and not from the depths of their heart. They're not really moved. They're not affected. V'chol zot ba lehem yan shelo hu beniflat et isha ivri, and all of this they don't see in the refugee. In the Jew, someone of their brothers that they need to feel their pain in their heart, as if this would be happening to their own brother. They are brothers, but they don't see them as flesh and blood brothers. As we saw in Moshe Rabbeinu, that always saw the Hebrews as one of his own flesh and blood. Al ken lo yada gvul umida be'ezrato shoshit lo. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu did not have any boundaries when he went out to extend his hand, even beyond his abilities, just to do whatever he could to interfere, and he didn't consider what implications was going to have about him. He was just Moser himself completely, because he saw this cannot happen to my brother. His in all his spirit and heart and his body. And not to mention his money, everything he put into it, because he put everything on the line for this. What did you want to say, Judy?
I just want to say that it is starting to trickle a little bit more and more that people are getting information that they're that they could change their mind. Just the other day, Jeremy Gimple and Ari Ablamovitz. They had two Israeli guys who live. I mean, they live in Israel. They're not Jewish, and they're mamash on the campaign of helping people realize, Jews and non-Jews, to realize the truth, what is really going on.
Yeah. Well, we have some of that.
Yeah. And also
we have some of that.
Yeah. Also, in the time of Paro, we had Batya helping the Jews, right?
Right.
Moshe Rabbeinu. History repeats itself.
Yeah.
There are people that do that.
I asked my father.
Yeah.
That when the Polish came to Hungary.
Yeah.
And they talked.
When do you mean when the Polish refugee Jews?
Yeah. When they came to Hungary, what did the Hungarians do? Why didn't they believe them? And my father said, the few that got out and talked and said what they saw, they said it was impossible to believe that something like this could possibly.
They didn't believe the refugees.
They didn't believe that it could be that horrific.
That horrific.
Yeah. They knew that something was going on, but they figured it was the same as what was going on for them. A yellow star, restriction at work, and the normal stuff that Jews get used to living with.
Normal. Just listen to how absurd that is. The normal stuff that Jews get used to. Wearing a yellow star, restricted. You can't work here. You can't work.
We get used to it.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it here in Israel. We get used to the piguas. We get used to the shooting.
I'm not getting used to it. And actually, every day I
What our government does.
Yeah, but
Do we say no? That's not going to happen. We put up ballards.
Yeah.
And assume so they're not
That's
going
not
to.
everybody. You don't.
No,
don't look here.
yeah. Stop it.
I'm not saying everybody. I'm saying that we don't change here in Israel either. Instead of turning around and saying, we're not going to let that happen.
I don't know. Okay, I think I'm not gonna continue more, because there's a lot more pages in this chapter.
Yeah. But I'm saying
But we're not learning in terms of the Israeli government. You're gonna free 3,000 terrorists.
Hello, this is what was going on last night. There are very good, strong Jews opposed, and we went on the Hafganah.
Yeah, but
and
are they going to affect the policy?
Well, if you don't try, is that better?
No, chas v'shalom,
So don't say
Okay.
that.
Anyone at home want to say something? Because there's a lot of people that have a lot to say around the table here, but I'm just wondering if at home.
Just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah.
sorry I couldn't make it in person today, but I was listening, but I was like walking my dog. Baruch Hashem, I was like walking in the land of Israel while listening to this amazing Torah. It's not lost on me, but it was actually really incredible. I didn't realize like about Ahavat Yisrael and Moshe, and how that was really like the impetus, to kill the Egyptian, because he felt, committed and, obligated to our fellow brothers. And also the next day, it was really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
Okay, so you know what? I was thinking like, how are we gonna hashtag this? How are we gonna on the YouTube so people? But I was thinking, Jewish leadership. It's because the Torah is telling us about Moshe Rabbeinu. This is our introduction to Moshe as a leader. The Torah is telling us he's the ultimate. There was no greater leader than Moshe Rabbeinu of all times, and it's and so the stories that the Torah decided to tell us about him was specifically addressing the leaders of the Jewish people. This is what you need to bring to your leadership. You have to have a serious nefesh. You have to have Ahavat Yisrael. What did you say?
Here it says, strengthening our fighting spirit and heroism. That would be a
fighting spirit and heroism. But, right.
I would make it just, how do we learn about how to love a fellow Jew, lessons from Moshe Rabbeinu or something like that?
Okay, can you help me with you're the publicity expert here. How are we going to come up with
you have to make it searchable. It has to be words that people are looking for.
So last week we came up with tikkun for the sin of the spies, but what are we going to call this?
How do we know we have to love a fellow Jew? Lessons from Moshe Rabbeinu.
But how do we say it? Is everyone in agreement to this?
It's beautiful what you
Edie's thinking about it?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. But yeah, lessons from Moshe about
heroism.
how to.
It's not really heroism. It's not heroism because it's a matter of it's leadership and empathy for people and for people who are going through.
Also loving a fellow Jew. Like he didn't know that guy, but for him, he felt it's a fellow Jew, even though he's in a position of power. He didn't have to connect this simple Jew who's getting beat, but even the most simple Jew, he had love for him.
Lessons from Moshe Rabbeinu.
Oh, we're all brothers. Lessons of Moshe Rabbeinu.
What is it? Jewish leadership. What does it really mean? Jewish leadership. What does it really mean?
Jewish leadership. What does it really mean? But let's give it what it really means. Let's put that.
So now that will make people say, "What is she talking about?" Yeah, let's look into That's it. It's just a question.
We want to come up with words that when they key in. So Jewish leadership.
How do we learn to love a fellow Jew? Where do we see that we need to love a fellow Jew in the Torah? Because these are also things where people are going to look into. Because Jewish leadership, although it's nice,
so we need more, right? So what did you say?
You have to add more to it.
Jewish leadership, loving the land, loving the people.
Loving the land, loving the people. Oh, I like that. Jewish leadership, loving the land, loving the people.
Well, it's not really, that's so broad. That could be the whole class.
Caring about
I'm just
the people.
throwing it out. Always love. I'm good at choosing.
Good. Thank you so much.